One of the biggest questions for Tears of the Kingdom is what they were going to do to the world, and we really haven't gotten that answered yet because so far there's one-to-one comparison videos online of the world pretty much being exactly the same and nothing's really changing with it. But with that said, there seems to be a hint as to what Nintendo could be doing with said world. One of the biggest questions we also had was what was the big draw of this game, or the big mechanic, and it seems like crafting is going to be the big new emphasis with this game instead of just exploration, as we are able to craft new weapons and also vehicles. But I think it goes further beyond weapons and vehicles, and I think it might actually also tie into what they're going to do with the new version of Hyrule. One of my biggest hopes and expectations was that Nintendo was working on some type of second world, like a dark world, a second alternate map that was kind of a reverse or flipped version of Hyrule with also new locations and new biomes. As time went on and trailers came out, it definitely looked like Nintendo wasn't going in that direction. Instead of going down, they were really going up, adding new islands and a new location in the sky, which is great, but my theory is that there's not going to be enough sky islands to feel like a whole second map. Sure, there's a lot of locations probably up there, but nowhere near enough to cover what the massive, vast land of Hyrule gave us in Breath of the Wild. It also looks like we'll be going underground and traversing through different cave networks, which is really cool as well, but what is going to change with Hyrule? Well, I might have a theory. Maybe the game's focus is exploring the new terrain up in the sky and down below, but what's the point of Hyrule in the middle? That piece of ground is what I want to focus on. I think one of the big things that we were hoping was for some type of crazy big changes in Hyrule, and I think the more I think about it, it doesn't quite make any sense. What could they do with Hyrule to really change it up? The time hasn't been that long in between games. I don't really know the exact time, but it couldn't be much longer after the events of Breath of the Wild, and we know there's probably not going to be any type of time travel. I mean, we were kind of hoping that would have been cool, but besides that, what in the world would they have done to change this vast world already? Well, there is still something I think that makes a lot of sense. Maybe we're not exploring new areas, but instead we are rebuilding some of the areas of the past. One of the coolest parts about Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity was seeing the structures and civilizations of the past and seeing how everything looked, and it gave the world almost an entirely different feel to it because it felt alive. There were lots of towns and people and civilizations that were living in more than just the 3 to 4 towns we see in Breath of the Wild. You can see the castle town, you can see all the different structures around Castle Town. It just felt more alive. It was the same exact world, and you were definitely going to remember some of the locations from Breath of the Wild, but it just looked completely different with it being fleshed out in a full civilization with walls, bridges, and giant doorways, and even all the different homes for all the different people that lived there. It felt surreal. And that doesn't take from Breath of the Wild because it was supposed to feel broken. A giant war broke out and the heroes lost, and you're supposed to feel that loss. You're supposed to feel everything just broken down and destroyed, and little civilizations still remain. And Breath of the Wild does an amazing job giving you the ruins of all these locations and kind of giving you pieces of the story as to what happened in each area. That's great for Breath of the Wild, but for Tears of the Kingdom, it wouldn't quite make a lot of sense. I know the castle town and guards are still preparing the world and repairing the world, but at the same time, even with the little bit of time that's went by between both games, I would like to see some differences within the world and how they changed some of these locations and maybe rebuilt them. Maybe it's not Nintendo that rebuilds these places for us. Maybe they're not just going to go around and rebuild everything the same way we've seen in Age of Calamity. That still would be kind of boring. Maybe instead they're like, you know what? This is the main mechanic of the game. It's crafting, right? Why not incorporate that into the actual gameplay in the world itself? That would be phenomenal. So what if it's not Nintendo that rebuilds these places for Tears of the Kingdom, but instead it's us? In The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, we can see only in Hyrule we have these little areas that hold different planks of wood and supplies, and there's a picket fence sign by each one of them. Now, we don't know what it says and what these are even for, but a lot of the consensus is kind of guessing that this might be the area where we're able to build bigger things, like hot air balloons and vehicles to travel across Hyrule with. And if our main focus is going above ground into the skies, or also going below ground into the caves, and the main Hyrule is just a way for us to get around, we're gonna need vehicles to build to get across the landscape faster. But maybe this could be used for something else. And then I started to think, maybe these are used to rebuild towns, since this one is placed near some broken ruins. And then I thought, well, that wouldn't make sense for it to be near the horse stable, because we don't need to rebuild the horse stable, and there doesn't seem to be anything nearby, at least that I know of. So unless we're able to put down towns in any location, whether it's a broken one or just a straight up new one in a new plot of land, I don't really think that's what this is for. These may seriously just be for building vehicles. And then I saw this in the background. These were always just broken ruins, and now there is a pile of cement bricks with a blue tarp on top, which seems to have some type of royal symbol on the tarp. So maybe this is the guard of Hyrule getting ready to rebuild this area. Now there is a chance that this could simply just be that. You know, just a way for the game to show that Hyrule is trying to rebuild, and that's it, and we never get anything changed with this location. But I think it's more than that. What if we're actually able to go to spots like this and rebuild these certain areas? Remember how Breath of the Wild had Balson, and he actually allowed us to work with him in order to build little new towns in Hateno Village and even help to build up Link's own home? And then eventually we were able to build an entire new town named Terry Town, which was really cool because it was like a melting pot full of all types of the different creatures and characters from every region, which was super cool. So what if this is something that's expanded on even more in Tears of the Kingdom? What if we actually have creative control and we get to design our own cities and homes and how they look? For instance, my Hyrule may be extremely different compared to your Hyrule. That would almost add a little bit of an Animal Crossing feature, which would work so good in something like Tears of the Kingdom, which is focused on crafting and rebuilding. So what if the sky is focused on training and completing shrines, maybe even dungeons, and just training against some of the Zonai robot contraptions, the constructs, and learning more about the story? Maybe the underground is where we fight even bigger and creepy enemies. It's like more of a battleground, the creepy secret underground of Hyrule where maybe there's ghosts like Pose or the Redeads that we saw already, and we can even see some of the enemies glow with a new Calamity Red, and it's just kind of spooky. It's a more creepy, intense version of Hyrule. Of course, maybe then the overworld for Hyrule is where we rebuild the civilization that once was, building up towns and civilizations, neighborhoods, big structures, and kind of just rebuilding the former glory that once was Hyrule. Which of course then makes Hyrule more of a transportation world for us to get from point A to point B, from cave to cave, and from Sky Island to Sky Island. So this definitely explains why maybe Nintendo is taking their time showing us things, is because we're actually going to be the ones changing the world, not Nintendo, which would be really cool because it's up to us. They don't really need to show us anything. At least just confirm that this is a possibility in the next trailer or something to get people hype. I think is all they need to do, is maybe just show us the possibility of what we can do to this world in order to change it from Breath of the Wild's world. But thank you so much for tuning in today, and if you guys have any other theories yourself as to what they could do with this world, definitely let me know in the comments down below, because I'd be so curious into finding out. I also wanted to give a little bit of an announcement of something that I just recently did, is I finally collected all 900 Korok seeds, which just felt so good. So I am ready to go for Tears of the Kingdom now, except for the fact that I'm missing, I think, one location on my map, so I'm like at 99.91%. I'll probably be spending the next couple of hours trying to find that one spot that I'm missing, so wish me luck. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Tears of the Kingdom and Nintendo in general. And like always, I will see you all on the next one. See you guys.